So we've just had a fantastic afternoon, a really lively discussion on the challenges facing the African transport and logistics market. And I think for me, the most important aspect that came across was that people really wanted better coordination, cross-border cooperation between countries. But I think more importantly, people were talking about homogenization as far as processes of documentation, customs processes, for example.
I mean, I completely agree. One thing I really liked was at the end, everybody was really positive about the growth Africa can make in this regard. What I found particularly interesting was the role the AU could play, and how people were talking about sort of regionalization and having regional chains and scaling that upwards. So I thought that the conversation was also quite broad. So it wasn't only about physical infrastructure; it was also about human infrastructure in terms of training and safety, in terms of the use of these transports. So I thought the conversation was quite strategic and quite broad.
Absolutely, and I think one of the issues which were brought out, maybe not related to the movement of freight, but to the relation to the people, movement of people, was that there should be some sort of visa waiver system brought in, because it's easier for Europeans to move around Africa than it is Africans, and that surely can't be right. I think on the investment side, what came through loud and clear was that there needs to be a public-private partnership. You know, the private sector cannot do this on its own. It needs that commitment from the public sector, and the public sector needs to look at a whole range of different investment criteria.
Yeah, another thing I thought was also interesting was when you asked, well, if all of these things don't happen, what will happen? And people said, what is happening now, which is nothing. And that just sort of showed the importance of scaling these conversations upwards and actually making a difference with these projects.
One of the dangers is if nothing gets done, then countries will move ahead on their own. For example, I use the example of Nigeria. It was investing already heavily in airports. It has the money available to invest, but it will do so suboptimally if it's acting on its own rather than as part of a region.
Maybe one of the reasons why countries have been hesitant is because they're of national interest. But when they can actually see the monetary value of these projects, then they might be more inclined to sort of open up their borders.
But it comes down to the political will to be able to push through this coordination and the homogenization of markets and harmonization of documentation, for example. But if the will is there and the next stage is actually implementation, then I think we can see very, very good prospects and release some of the value which is stored up within the African transport and logistics sector.
I think for me it's exciting opportunities because, like we've been saying, Africa is on the rise, and although there are a lot of challenges, I see so much benefit from solving these challenges. So no wonder everybody in the room was quite optimistic.